Want to improve your English listening skills? Then watch this interview and you will find out how. Hello, it's Keith from Keith Speaking Academy and English Speaking Success, where you become a confident speaker of English. Now, one of the biggest challenges students face is understanding spoken English, right? Understanding native speakers, different accents, films, TV, all of that. Well, today I have a really exciting interview with JForrest, who is a Canadian teacher. She has an awesome YouTube channel, JForrest English. Get it right, Keith. JForrest English, with over 1 million subscribers. And she's helping students with all aspects of English, right? With reading, listening, writing, and speaking as well. In this interview, we're focusing on listening skills. And Jennifer is going to talk about, well, helping you handle real-life conversations, different accents, and different resources to help you improve your listening skills. A note, we start the interview just like a real IELTS speaking test. So notice the kind of answers that Jennifer gives. And then just enjoy the rest of the interview. Let's do it. Right, hello there. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, Keith. It's so nice to be here today. And hello to all your students as well.
Yeah, we're all of us very excited to see you here today. Lovely to meet you here. I'm going to start today's interview a little bit IELTS style, okay? Some quick fire questions. First of all, what is your full name?
My full name is JForrest.
Okay, and where are you from?
I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada, which is in central Canada, but I currently live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, which is the capital of Canada.
Right. Tell us a bit about your hometown.
My hometown is freezing cold. Most people know it as Winterpeg instead of Winnipeg. It can go down to minus 30 degrees Celsius in the winter. So Winnipeggers, as we call ourselves, are very hardy. We're very strong people. But in the summer, it is very enjoyable, very warm. It goes up to about plus 30. And it's known as the culture capital because we have a great diversity of entertainment and restaurants. So overall, it's a very nice place to live if you can handle the cold.
Nice. I love the Winterpeg. And also, do you work or are you a student?
I work. I've been working for over 15 years now. It's been a long time since I was a student. So I work full-time as an English teacher, primarily on my YouTube channel, JForrest English.
Do you like your job?
I love my job. It gives me the opportunity to meet new people every single day. I feel like the work I'm doing is really helping people, which gives me a sense of motivation to keep going every day. So yes, overall, I really love my job.
Fantastic. That's enough of the IELTS questions. Let's segue in, because today we're going to talk about listening skills. And I think it's a real challenge for students on understanding films, radio, TV series, and also other people, native speakers or proficient speakers. So it'd be really interesting to look at how we can develop listening skills and different aspects of that. So I guess the first question is a very general one. How can students improve their listening skills?
It's an excellent question. And I'm really glad you asked because a lot of students focus on their speaking, which I understand. Of course, you want to develop your speaking, but in order to speak with someone, you need to understand the conversation. So listening is such an important part of speaking and overall fluency. And if I were to offer one thing I would want your students to remember for improving their listening skills, it would be exposure. Exposure. So you need to expose yourself to real world speaking. Of course, you spend a lot of time listening to your teacher, Keith, or other YouTubers, which is great. And you should keep doing that. But you need to listen to Keith talking to his friends or family in the real world as well. So just get exposure to native speakers speaking in the real world. And the more you get that exposure, the more your listening skills will just naturally improve.
Right. It's a very good point, because I know a lot of students say, when I listen to my teacher, I can understand a lot. And then I go and watch a film and I just can't follow half of what's going on. Why is that? What's happening there?
Yeah, I hear this a lot from my students too. And sometimes students will ask me, well, are you using classroom English with me? Like right now, are you and I, are we changing the way we speak for students? And the reality is that no, we're not. But the context we're in, we're speaking in a more presentation environment or a little more of a formal environment. Whereas if we were just speaking to each other casually or conversationally, socially, the things we would talk about would change. Right now, we're talking about English learning, English studying. The vocabulary is quite familiar to students. But if they watch a movie, there's dialogue, there's conversations that the students aren't that familiar with the vocabulary because it's not related to learning English or studying. And there's a lot of other noise in the background. Whereas right now we have professional audio, there's no noise in the background. Our voices are very easy to hear. But even just in a cafe, there's going to be a lot of background noises, a lot of other people talking. The audio quality won't be perfect. The vocabulary won't be related to learning English. And all of these things, which are just natural and normal, make it more difficult to understand native speakers outside of a learning or professional context.
Right. So it goes back a bit to what you talked about, exposure to exposing yourself to those kind of different situations.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. It's very true. I guess as teachers, we are always in presentation mode, and it's a limited vocabulary, et cetera, et cetera. When students go to watch like a film, what's your take on, for example, subtitles? Are they useful for listening skills in particular?
Yeah, I think for sure there is a time when subtitles are very useful, but you have to understand when you're using subtitles, which you absolutely can and should do, you're in a different environment. You're not in a real world environment, you're in a practice environment. So when you sit down to purposely make it your goal to improve your listening skills, subtitles will likely be part of that process. And you can do it in different ways. You can practice first with subtitles, get comfortable with it, and then gradually watch it a few more times and then watch it eventually without subtitles and see if you can understand it. So you can make subtitles part of your practice, but just know in the real world, nobody will hand you subtitles to a conversation to help you understand. If you go to a party, there will not be subtitles. If you go to a meeting, there will not be subtitles. So, yes, they're absolutely helpful for practicing, but you have to also practice without them because ultimately your goal is to understand English without subtitles.
Right. So ultimately, they can be a very good support, like a crutch to help you get used or connect maybe the sound and the letters. But yeah, do both skills. That's nice. Very, very good.
Mhm.
I guess with also, kind of films and TV series, a lot of students talk about fast English, and they say,
Right.
I mean, if you look on YouTube, the most popular videos are always how to understand fast English, right?
Mhm.
And I get it, because sometimes videos and films, it may be faster, or at least it sounds faster. Um, so the big question, I mean, are there any tips or strategies to help students understand fast English? Fast English?
That is a great question because I'm sure English does sound fast to students, and I can empathize because I'm also a language learner of other languages. And when I hear those languages in the real world, they sound so fast to me compared to watching a standard learning video of that language. So I completely empathize with that. And the reality is that, yes, just naturally, if we are presenting something like I'm doing now, presenting ideas, I will likely just speak a little slower to make sure that my ideas are heard fully. Whereas if I'm sharing a story with a friend or just talking to family, I'll probably speak faster. And the one thing to understand with fast English that will help students the most is to understand this concept of connected speech, where native speakers will connect their sounds together and it helps us speak faster. And if you ask a native speaker who is not an English teacher, they will have no idea what you're talking about because this isn't something as native speakers, this isn't something we learn to do. They're just natural pronunciation changes that take place when we're speaking. Students know some of the basic ones. For example, we don't say going to. Generally, we say gonna in natural speech. And again, this isn't something we sit down and learn. Nobody taught us to say gonna. It just naturally happens and allows us to speak faster. So, understanding and practicing and getting exposure to spoken English, which is naturally used in the real world of English, will absolutely help you understand this fast English.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The gonna, the wanna, the could have, all of those, right?
Yeah, and I love using so I like to expose my students to this real English by using clips from anything, TV, YouTube, movies, the news, it does not matter, but I love showing my students clips of professionals, news anchors or Barack Obama or other professionals and show them that they're using this connected speech at well. It's not slang, it's not informal,
Mm.
it's just natural. And Barack Obama isn't thinking about it, and a news anchor isn't thinking about it. It just naturally happens.
Yeah. And as you said, it's interesting. It's not something we study. I'm not sure about Canada, but in the UK, at school, we don't study grammar, phonology of English, nothing. I mean, very, very little. And yet, I mean, first learned the grammar of English when I studied to become a teacher. And it's bizarre, right? Is that the same in Canada?
Oh, absolutely the same. When I was studying to become a certified English teacher, I remember the first time I had to explain the concept of the present perfect compared to the past simple. I had to learn what the present perfect was. Like that name, the present perfect, I had never heard of it before. I had never thought of that. I could use the present perfect
Yes.
fluently and confidently in any context, but I could not teach it to someone because I didn't understand the rules of when or how to use it. So I personally had to study the English language so much at the beginning of my teaching career. And actually, one of my favorite little guilty pleasures is to quiz my husband on these concepts because he doesn't know them at all. And it's funny for me to ask him these questions and he just has no idea. But then he can offer a sentence in the present perfect fluently and instantly, but he does not know what that is.
Right. And he's Canadian, I'm guessing.
He is, yes, he
Right.
is, yes.
You mentioned earlier that you speak some other languages, or which other languages have you or are you learning to speak?
So I previously, my first language I learned, which was before I became certified as an English teacher, was French. In
Mm,
Canada, there is a large French speaking population as well. And so I learned French for many years and I was a very devoted student. And part of the reason why I focus so much on helping my students improve their listening skills or exposing them to real English is because that I feel is the biggest mistake when that I made when I was speaking French.
mm,
And yes, I had a lot of vocabulary. I knew the grammar rules, but one of the things that prevented me from having a conversation with people is that I couldn't understand them. I couldn't understand what they were saying to me. So I couldn't reply back even if I had confidence in my speaking or I knew the vocabulary, I didn't know what they were saying to me.
Yeah.
And every time I tried to watch a French movie or a TV show, it was extremely difficult. So that's part of the reason why I focus so much on the listening skills. And because I understand that it helps as you improve your listening skills, you learn correct pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, you learn it all at the same time. And most recently, I've been learning Spanish. And
Mm.
I try to expose myself to real Spanish now so I can avoid the difficulties I had learning French.
So you can really empathize with your students, right? As a language learner.
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly what it's like to go into a situation and just completely freeze because I don't know what they're saying to me, or freeze because they ask me a simple question, but at that exact moment, the words just fly out of my head. My heart's racing. I know all those feelings
Mhm.
for sure, personally.
We talked a bit about fast English, and about movies and TV series and that. I mean, talking a bit about conversations, right? Real life conversations.
Mhm.
If sometimes you walk into a room and you start speaking to native speakers, English in this case, and some of them speak super fast, or
Mhm.
they mumble, or you miss something in the conversation. Are there any kind of tips or strategies to approach that kind of real life conversation if things are going, if somebody's not clear, they're too fast, and or you've just missed what they said?
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a great question because it's a reality. It's a reality that students will find themselves in. And I hope it brings you a little bit of comfort to all the students listening that native speakers find ourselves in these situations as well. We have to ask people to repeat themselves, or there are times where we don't understand something with a native speaker as well. So just hopefully that brings you a little comfort. But the two tips I would offer is one, if you don't understand something, just ask them to repeat themselves. Be honest about what you don't understand. But two, perhaps more importantly, is you don't need to understand every single word of a conversation in order to understand the meaning of a conversation. So when you're listening to someone, don't focus on individual words, because if you miss the second word, you might be so focused on what's that second word, but then you miss the third, fourth, fifth because you're thinking about the second. So try to just understand the meaning. And if you're listening to someone where you also see the person as well, look for the visual clues, the body language. You can tell a lot if someone is communicating to you and they're it's ask yourself, is it positive, is it negative, the meaning or the situation. If they're telling you a story, is it a funny story, a serious story,
Mm.
are they angry, or are they happy? So you can tell a lot by somebody's body language and verbal cues, which will help you understand the meaning. But pay attention to just trying to understand the overall meaning, not the individual words. And then be honest if you don't understand something and ask them to repeat themselves. But if you focus on those two things, I think it'll take the stress and the pressure off, because I certainly don't listen to every individual word and I don't understand every individual word in English conversations myself.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Being honest is a fantastic piece of advice. Very, very good. I've been in a situation as a language learner where I've not been honest, but I've just listened to the person and gone, and the
Yeah.
further they go on, I'm thinking, I understand nothing. I don't know what they said. And then there comes a point where they ask you a question and you're like, oh God, what do I say? Because I should have told them earlier I wasn't following them. And so, yeah, that honesty is a really good idea early on, right?
Yeah, for sure. You think you're avoiding some embarrassment because you don't want to ask them to repeat themselves, but eventually they're going to want to know your opinion or know your answer, and then they'll know you didn't understand anything they said eventually. So might as well be honest from the beginning.
Totally agree. And the other thing that happens is if you're asking like, oh, could you repeat again? They may think, oh, their English isn't that good, so I'll slow down, and they may adapt a bit to help you understand.
That's
Whereas
very
if you
true.
say nothing, maybe they think, oh, yeah, he's fluent in English or Spanish. And so,
Exactly.
yeah. Interesting. Great. We've talked about films. We've talked about real life conversations. We've talked about even native speakers sometimes struggle to understand everything. I struggle sometimes with accents, like
Mm.
some Scottish accents or strong Irish accents. Some students have asked me, what should they be listening to? Should I be listening to an American accent or should I be listening to a British accent? What should they be doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I also struggle with some accents as well, for sure. Because again, it goes back to my very first point that I hope everyone remembers, which was exposure.
Mm.
Personally, in North America, there are certain styles of English or dialects of English that I'm not exposed to. So I have a more difficult time understanding those. For example, I was watching a South African film on Netflix and I struggled with understanding them at first. The first 10 minutes was quite difficult, but then my ear just naturally adjusted, understood it. And towards the middle and end, I was a lot better at understanding that. But the beginning was very hard for me. So just know that your struggle with understanding different accents, native speakers have the same thing. And which ones we struggle with is generally just because it's a lack of exposure to those accents. Now, which accent should you learn? Is one better than the other? Well, just ask yourself in your specific environment, whether that be where you live, where you work, where your hobbies are, what are you exposed to? If you work with a lot of Scottish speakers, you should absolutely expose yourself more to the Scottish accent by watching Scottish films, Scottish podcasts, or anything else where people are speaking Scottish dialect. If you have never had a conversation with someone from Scotland before and you work just with people from South Africa, well, then you should expose yourself to South Africa. So ask yourself specifically what dialects you're exposed to and focus on learning those first, and then of course understand that just in general a variety of dialects will help you understand, because we live in a multicultural world. No matter where you go in the
Mm.
world, you're going to have people from all backgrounds and all dialects of English.
Yeah. Yeah, that's especially true, I think, for IELTS students who have to listen to all different kinds of accents. But
Yes.
ultimately, as you say, if they're going to study in America for a year, then it makes sense to get used to the American accent more than a British accent, maybe. But generally speaking, listening to all of them is good, right?
It is.
What about a final question about resources then? Because you've talked about exposure. I mean, to help students do listening practice, there is so much stuff out there. Students don't know where to start sometimes. Any advice or recommendations for listening materials and resources?
Yeah, I would say because the possibilities are endless, you can find any style of dialogue, any style of dialect, different accents available for free online. So ask yourself, what are you personally interested in? Because the more that you have a personal interest in a topic, the more it won't seem like studying. It won't seem like
Mm.
a chore. It will be enjoyable. So if you have a passion for music and guitar and playing guitar, you might want to find some podcasts on that topic, for example, or some YouTube videos on that topic, and find ones with people who speak different dialects, different accents as well. So you should expose yourself based on your specific interests. And then whether you want to know, oh, should it be a movie? Should it be a TV show? Should it be a podcast? Really, it's what works best for you, because they're all effective. They all work. So which one do you enjoy using? Which one is easiest for you? So just ask yourself that. And really, there is no wrong resource to use. One resource that I really love using myself and I add to my lessons a lot and I share with my students freely is a resource called Youglish. Youglish.
Mhm.
And this is a free website that you can put in specific words or specific idioms or expressions, and it will search the entirety of YouTube and show you results of native speakers using that specific word or expression. And the best part is that it will, let's say you just learned the idiom to break the ice, and you want to hear native speakers using this to practice your listening skills, but also to see it in different contexts, see different sentence structures, different grammar. So you can put that specific idiom, break the ice, on this website, Youglish, and it will come up with 50 to 500 results
Yeah.
of just this one sentence of this native speaker using it. So you listen to one sentence, you click next, and it could be a totally different accent, totally different context, and it just exposes yourself to so much. So that's a really great resource, but just remember, whatever you want to use, make sure you enjoy it, and then you'll be more likely to do it.
Nice, very nice advice, and what an awesome resource it is. I love Youglish. It's great. Okay, I'll leave a link down below for the guys to check it out later.
Wonderful.
That's brilliant, Jennifer. We've talked about fast English. We've talked about films, TV series, real life conversations, accents, just about everything. If students want to find out more about you and the kind of the work that you're doing, where can they find you?
They can come over to my YouTube channel, which is JForrest English. I'd love to help you improve your listening skills or other areas of your English as well.
Fantastic. JForrest English. Go and check it out, guys. It's there. Jennifer posts a lot of videos. There's a lot of resources there, really worth checking out. Lovely, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting, and I'm sure the students will learn lots and lots.
Oh, thanks so much, Keith, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, take care. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great. So now you should have lots of tips to help you improve your listening skills. In fact, just listening to this interview will be helping your listening skills, right? So thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing your ideas for this great interview, sharing your tips and resources for other students. Please do go and check out her channel, JForrest English. Hey, I got it right this time. On YouTube, JForrest English. It's great, lots of resources. She posts quite regularly, so there's lots of content for you. Thanks again for watching today. It's been a pleasure being here with you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best now. Bye-bye.